If I pull my shit out, this whole room get dark.
The purpose of this show is to highlight entrepreneurs and other community members making a difference in Syracuse. Without further ado, my name is Celestin Abway, and I'm your host for Syracuse Connect. For our first episode, we wanted to spice things up a little bit. In order to do that, our guest brings all that to the table. He's a troublemaker, teacher, creator, a listener, and my mentor, Matt Reed. Welcome to the Syracuse Connect.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks
for having me on here.
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Yeah.
So in order to get started, I was doing a little research on you.
Okay.
I want you to tell our audience about the samurai story with you and Alex.
All right. So, yeah, Alex, my business partner in the show, and he's our creative director and everything. We were throwing a party, and I think we were going to try to recreate this on camera. I don't think he's going to be down with it. And the party was going as parties go, and someone had brought out, like, we're throwing axes and everything, and people were drinking, we're cooking crawfish and stuff. And one of our friends brought a watermelon, and another one of our friends brought a real samurai sword, not like the ones that like you get at the fair, like an actual katana that's like sharpened, like bought from like a sword maker in Japan. And everybody's like, oh, that's a bad idea. And there's a video of it, and you can actually hear me say to him, like, I don't know, dude, if you should do this. And someone soft tosses him the watermelon, and he takes a mighty swing and cuts it in half in midair. And you see one of our friends that brought the watermelon kind of like, oh man, like, I thought we were gonna eat that.
That's because when I pick my watermelons, I'm so specific about it. I want it to be nice and sweet, taking all that time in.
Oh yeah, and you're rolling it.
This, I'm like, man, I took so much time in this.
Making sure the sugar's in the right places, or like I'm gonna juice it, I'm gonna throw some tequila in it, and then all of a sudden now this one has a big old slice through it. We like to make a lot of like cocktails with juiced watermelon. So, mojito with like some mint simple syrup. So take like a cup of water, a cup of sugar, heat it up till the sugar dissolves, throw a handful of mint in it, let it sit for a half hour. So we're gonna do like 2 cups of watermelon juice, about a half cup of tequila, quarter cup of that simple syrup, shake it, now you've got this watermelon margarita. Good to go. Yeah.
Especially on a hot day like that.
Yeah, I think you need to do it just to stay hydrated and stay alive,
Well, in the spirit of the entrepreneurship theme, in the elevator pitch, something like that, please tell our audience what exactly do you do?
So, Alex and I launched this brand in 2019 called Spatchcock Funk. And it's been it started out as a YouTube show, and then we got it to be a news segment. And now we're going to be creating half-hour TV shows for different markets. The idea of it, though, basically, Spatchcock Funk is great food, or dope food plus strong drinks equal great stories. So the idea is we're using partying to kind of do storytelling. And the premise to the audience is like, look, you bring the friends, we're gonna bring everything else. And we'll tell you how to make drinks, how to make food, what reasons to throw a party, because everyone knows how to throw a birthday party, or like, July 4th or a Halloween party. Like, we're talking parties like, yeah, we're gonna have a barbecue, like, cool. We're gonna do some like how to throw a party on a boat, or how to, like, with your friends sometimes just dress up for no reason. Like, how to really throw kind of bangers that are pretty cool. So it's been growing. We've got sponsors on our new segment. We've got people that we're working with as we're getting into the longer form show. So it's been a pretty cool ride. And who knows where it's gonna go. As we keep growing and we're feeling really good and happy about it, as an entrepreneur, like things keep going and it's great, but all of a sudden, that's it, man.
So how do you pick yourself up when something like that happens? Because not a lot of people have a game plan when they hit a burnout. How do you get yourself out of that burnout?
That's a great question. So one of the things is you have good mentors and friends that you can trust, right? Because everybody's going to tell you, once people start viewing your content, or people see like Clutch Deliveries delivering food, right? Like, oh, you're so successful. Then you got to make sure that when people tell you they like something, do they really like it, or are they just saying that to make you happy? So that's one of them, but also having a plan, right? Like being able to think, what is it you want? Like, our goal in the long term is to, you know, not just be in a few markets around the country, but to be a national type brand, right? So in the meantime, you go back and look at what other brands have been successful, what have failed. You know, like Netflix is a good example. I mean, we're never going to be like Netflix, but we'd love to be on Netflix if you're watching Netflix. Yeah, right. So the other thing too is you think about when Netflix came around, right? Netflix and then Blockbuster. Blockbuster's like, who cares? I own the market. I'm everything. I got DVDs everywhere. And Netflix starts mailing them, and they're like, cool. But Netflix knew enough that over time things would change. So it's trying to be adaptable, but learning from the dips and the mistakes. So for a lot, and that happens in communities too. I was talking to my friend Stefan, who was working on a project recently, a film project somewhere, and they were filming something that where they were filming it, they had made a few mistakes beforehand, and they came back, and it gets better over time. The worst thing is to give up. Like most things, I mean, I don't know, for me, being a teacher myself, sometimes, failure is the best teacher, right? You can have anybody tell you, here's what, like, my mom probably hates it because she's told me so many things that she was right about, but I had to fail and figure out on my own.
Failure is a really good teacher. Just backing off of me with Clutch, the first year in 2020, we didn't even have an MVP.
Yeah.
We were working with a food vendor, wanted to work with a food vendor, but that didn't out. We crushed hard. I was like, I'm not even doing this anymore. Do I even want to do this?
Right.
Give myself a few months, praying on it a little bit, and something happened. It just kept going. Perseverance is a big thing as an entrepreneur.
You know, it is, but Clutch also became flexible. At the time you had that, I remember the vendor that you had at one point, and then you're like, okay, now you're working with a bunch of different places. Now people want to work with you, but having faith in, you're talking about praying on it. So you got faith in the Almighty or whatever it is that you're like looking for this advice from, and it's also having faith in your idea and what you're doing. Because it's easy, you're gonna have people that will naysay it and things like that, but you found out the hard way, like, okay, like, I mean, and that's hard when you have a business plan, like with a vendor coming in and like, okay, we built on this, we're good to go. And all of a sudden that's gone and you're like, well, now we don't have it anymore. Exactly. And that's a big lesson to learn.
There's always something I always say about people that pray. I don't, whatever God you pray to, but a lot of people pray for the rain to come, but they have not prepped the field. You have to do the work, then pray that the rain will come. Mom always uses that, so I wanted to put that in there.
So she's a farmer, and that's great farmer wisdom. The other thing too about that is makes me think about something you taught me a while ago. Like you take care of the little things, and the big things take care of themselves, right? So luck kind of favors the prepared. Like a football will take funny bounces sometimes, and you can never predict how it's going to bounce. But if you're around the football, you have a better chance of getting the football, right? So you're right. The preparation, and the hard thing about learning is we don't know what we don't know. So as you're building a show or a delivery brand, right? Both those things, particularly a digital delivery brand, it's the Wild Wild West. Like you've got like Uber Eats and Grubhub and these things, but they're still figuring it out too. Like they ebb and flow. Grubhub gets big at one point, and then all of a sudden they're crushing the delivery driver. So like, I don't want to work with you anymore. Or the restaurants aren't making enough money. So no one knows what the right answer is right now. So it's hard to plan it, but it's preparing for it and see what happens.
Exactly. So going back to Spatchcock, how does that tie in the community? How are you involved with the community? You talked about the long-term goal, is going national with this.
Yeah.
Well, how can people get involved in this and support you guys?
Well, the biggest way you can support it is go to our sponsors and be like, oh my gosh, I saw you sponsor the show, and subscribe and those type of things. But for us, the community actually is how we got here. So we've been threatening to like do this type of show to tell our friends and be like, oh my gosh, we had this cool idea for a show. And they're like, oh my gosh, you guys should do it. So then we pat ourselves in the back, but we were sated the idea. We were like, oh my gosh, cool, they like our idea. So we didn't start doing anything with it. But other people encouraged it. So we started it, and then a couple things is for the community, you got to come together. So we have a lot of really good friends in the restaurant industry and the media and marketing industry that Alex and I come from. So they've been willing to say, hey, we're going to connect you to someone. Our first big break came from our friend of ours, Melanie Johnson. But it came to her because a guy that we know that Alex worked with a lot at the Crunch made a connection with Melanie, right? So the community, we want to make sure like we'll do what we can to give back to it. So we've done a lot of like cooking demos for charities and things to raise money for the events and stuff. So the community connection is important, because if you don't have a healthy community or you're not a contributor to it, why are they going to watch your show or care about that? There are so many great content creators in the world. I'm talking about superior to us, like legendary musicians or things, and they're, they didn't get canceled, but maybe they did get canceled because they're jerks and they don't care about the community, or they're tone deaf, right? So that's one thing for us to be wary of. And you think about, so we depend on viewers to like our content and engage with us. For you, if you're not engaged with the community, people might be like, yeah, Clutch might be cheaper and easier than this, but those guys are jerks and they don't care about what's going on. So I think it's making that personal connection with the community, but it's hard too, because you want to trade in goodwill, I think, right? Like, do favors for people when you can, give them advice when you can. And I think that's something that's hard to keep up on, because I don't know about you, one thing that I feel happens to me at least once or twice a week, someone's name will come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to her in a while, I should holler at her. And then what I try to do is like just send a text on the spot, like, hey, was just thinking about you. So it's hard to maintain community as you grow it, but I think that's what makes community strong, is caring about the other people and engaging with them. Like the restaurant community here, which we do a lot of work with, and there's different places you can catch me hanging out at all the time, particularly depending on what I'm looking to do. If I'm looking to drink a bunch of beers, it might be a Kitty Hoynes or
to the students where you go yet.
Yeah. So they actually, I'm never there. Yeah. They're never there.
Didn't see them.
So those people though, like people go to those restaurants and those bars because, not just because one of them has live music every night or this place has banging wings. A lot of times it's the bartenders or what they do to the community and things. So that to me is kind of what's important. I mean, I don't know. I guarantee you there are people that are making decisions ordering from Clutch because they can get different places, but they might be like, oh, I like the people that are at that place. Let's order from there. And I think that's a big part of it. It's the human connection, because what Clutch does, you deliver food, right? And a great restaurant, they might make, there's like 4 or 5 places that have won awards for the burgers here. But you can get a great burger at a lot of different places. Usually what makes you pick one over another one, or one delivery service over another one, is how they treat you. And I think that's a big deal.
I couldn't agree more. There's this saying, I forgot which book what this was for. I took a class with Dr. Makuja, or Father Makuja, his religion professor. And one of this book, it said, I am because you are, since you are, therefore I am. And that always sticks by me. Because when people see people like entrepreneurs moving around, they think it's quid pro quo all the time, right? You're giving me something, I'm giving something always, right? Sometimes it's about something maybe you're not able to give something, but you're just being useful. And that's the thing. With me, I'm always looking to be useful. How can I help doing this, doing that? And it doesn't always have to be you're getting paid, right? But if you're useful, something will always come out at the end of the day. You don't have to worry about when will I find something, will I a job here and there. But
Well, that's a great point. To me, I think one of the things in the world, and someone taught me this, was, my friend Jeff Knaus actually is the guy that taught me about this too, is when you're building relationships, it's not what you're going to get out of it, right? Sometimes, I think about in the movie Superman, one of the bad guys says, a good death is its own reward, right? And sometimes doing a good deed or helping somebody else out is worth more than any other connection you might get down the road. So people teach, or I mean, what I seek personally is influence. Like I love talking to a former student of mine, and they call me and say, oh my gosh, I got this great project we're working on at this ad agency, or seeing someone be successful, right? There's nothing that I'm going to get out of that except the joy of having been a part of it. But what goes around kind of comes around. And I think what's important is the ability to treat other people and help them develop. That stuff does come around. Someone talks about, like, some people will put networking in a bad spin. And you and I have talked about this before. But networking, some people tell you it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think there might be some truth to that, but you got to know something. But it's really, that's not it. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. Who have you been valuable for? And there are people like that in relationships that will be lopsided. I mean, you were talking about your mom and your grandmother and your grandfather and your dad, and talking about like what they've done as farmers and things like that. Well, here's the thing. Your relationship with them to this day has been a little lopsided. I mean, they've kept you alive for a long time, fed you a bunch of stuff where like 6-year-old Celestin couldn't afford to get groceries, dude.
I can't give back as much as what they pumped into me.
Ever. So you're giving it to other people. And someday there might be little Celestins that are getting that from you too. So it's more about like the relationship of a community is not necessarily getting a return on it, because what goes around will come around. And that, especially, you kind of see like when times get tough, where your friends are. Like during COVID, there were people you were probably still in touch with, and all of a sudden some that kind of like drifted away. So I think that's a big deal. Like it's not about transactional relationships, but like, hey, let's just see if we can help each other out, and that sometimes should be its own reward.
It takes a village to raise a child, and that's really true.
It is.
And you see it during really trying times when you actually need those people. Are they actually going to be there for you?
Totally.
Sometimes, things happen and you have to understand that not everybody's going to always show up, but
Yeah.
they still have a lot of love for you. But you mentioned something about an ad agency, so I want to make it clear to the audience. You're not just a chef or make killer drinks. You also have an ad agency. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, sure. So when I'm not teaching, my background is I work in advertising for, gosh, now like 19 years, and it's weird talking to my students about that because they're like, I'm not even that old, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like I was wearing a Wu-Tang shirt once, and this girl's like, oh, I love classic rock, and I'm like, what? She's like, that album came out. Yeah, well, she was right though. Like, you know, 36 Chambers came out before she was born. And I'm like, oh, you just failed this class. So as you sit there and think about that though, right? Like the time after when I got into teaching, I had worked at Digital Hyde and Mower and Ogilvy and different agencies. In addition to teaching, for me, I don't have a PhD, so I'm a professor of practice, so I have to be active in the field. And the cooking show kind of does that, but I also have a creative consulting firm called Royal Punk Android, and we'll do work with different brands. We've worked with Mayor Walsh's political campaigns, worked with One Group, which is a big employer in the area, worked with other universities and stuff too. So that's fun to keep my teeth and claws sharp, but also too, the students are coming to me to get advice on the career itself. So I once had a professor in college and they were talking about something that was no longer relevant, and I always am really scared to, that's why when they teach me about me being so much older than them, and I love their senses of humor, that always keeps me on edge, like, okay, make sure you're staying up to date with this stuff. So that's a lot of the good fun with it. But also, they're a big reason, the students are one of the big reasons why we got into the cooking show aspect of it too, because a lot of students want to become influencers. And it's cool. Obviously, I think it's cool, but I couldn't teach on it if I hadn't tried it. And, there's your basic formula, like, oh, let's throw a bunch of thirst traps, and like, I'm going to take my shirt off and have a six pack. That's cool, but there's a lot of that out there. So how do you differentiate yourself? And I didn't have an answer for that because no one really knows, but now I can speak more relatively, relevant in that space. So working with my clients on creative consulting and then the cooking show allows me to be better at that aspect of teaching.
Man, that's amazing. So to use your own words, you're getting up there in age. You're getting old dinosaur.
This interview's over.
So, like you said, you've had multiple positions in the ad agency in different career fields. How do you pivot from all those roles and getting into them? Because a lot of young people, even people in the professional, they've matured in their fields, are very scared to change
Yeah.
careers and shifts. How do you get the confidence to do that?
Man, that's a great question, but I do have an answer for it, and I had to find out the hard way. Like we were saying before, someone's going to fail to figure that out. So sometimes some students will take some advice, and sometimes they got to figure it out on their own, but at least they have the groundwork for it. So first, like your confidence, I don't know about you, but for me, and I'm a bit older than you. I'm not going to say I'm double your age, though I think I definitely am. But if we're sitting there, right, like if it took me 35 years to get here, but you listen to some of my advice, it should only take you 25 or 30, right, to get there. But part of it is two things to pivot well. Besides improving your own confidence and believing in yourself, that faith we talked about earlier, in yourself and a higher power, the pivot comes for two reasons. The first thing is you have to see how the world is changing, right? Kodak was the largest camera manufacturer in the world, and they were awesome. And the digital camera came around and they're like, oh, we're not going to pivot. And they died. And ironically, they're the ones that invented the digital camera, right? So seeing where the world's changing is important, but also seeing where you're changing. So for me, I started out in advertising, negotiating TV contracts, like how many commercials should be in a show. And then I moved into managing clients and strategy. And then I started doing the creative stuff, which is what I really like. But then I figured out that actually what I really like are teaching the people at an agency how to be creative and how to pitch clients and pitch ideas. So that led me to teaching advertising and creativity. And the show is about teaching people how to party, or to make cocktails, only a few to be responsible, And
responsibly too.
that's right. And the food and stuff. So those 2 points in the pivot is how is the world changing? And then how do you personally respond to that? And you'll see people that have become like kind of great humans that weren't great humans before. I'm not one of those people. I mean, I'm definitely wasn't a good person at one point in my life, but I'm not saying I'm a great person now. But you see people that have been like, oh man, I shouldn't talk like that or act like that. It can be a big thing or a small thing, but being able to see where things might change in your industry or your field, but also where you might change. Like, where are you happiest? Because if you want to be successful, and you know this as a successful entrepreneur, that you've done at a younger age than most people that ever try entrepreneurship do. So that's a blessing, but it's also a curse. Because you got to sit there and realize if you want to be successful at anything in the world, everybody's like, what's the secret? What's the trick? The trick and the secret, there's no secret. It's you have to work your tail off, work your ass off. And you're more likely to put in 60 or 70 hours a week doing something you love than something you don't. That's why people that are great, own great pizza shops or Irish pubs or apps, they generally love that particular thing they're doing. So I think being able to look at yourself and say, okay, this is what actually makes me happy. And this is where the world's kind of changing because, the radio industry's changed. Now it's digital, it's not antenna driven. And if you can't see right, and podcasts are great. And if you can't see the world changing for what it is, you're gonna get left behind.
That's true. Welcome back to another segment of Syracuse Connects. We're moving from the garage to the kitchen and having Matt cook one of his special dishes that he would love to share with our audience, but also with their Syracuse Connect family. We're going to move on to that segment. Matt, what are you cooking today?
Well, you know what, Celeste, here's the thing, especially young person like you, living the life in a beautiful apartment. Yep. One thing that people should know how to do is how to make a great steak. So we're going to make a steak the way you're going to get a high quality one at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. So what we've got is a Delmonico, aka a ribeye. So it's my favorite cut. So it's fatty, but it's got a lot of incredible flavor. And what you do when you're going to make a great steak, the first thing you do is hit it with some salt and some pepper and let it sit out for at least 25 minutes to get to room temperature.
And why do you do that? Why don't you just cook it directly to the pan?
It's a great question. So first, you put the salt on it because the salt will draw the moisture to the top and the bottom to get that awesome crust you want and keep the juices in. Yep. And then also too, as the steak is heating, is coming to room temperature and getting back to temperature, if you just take it out and let it sit for 5 minutes, the top and the bottom will be at a good cooking temperature, but the middle of the meat will still be too cold. Mm-hmm. So when it cooks, it won't cook through. And I mean, I like a rare steak, but if it's undercooked, then it's just raw, right? And you don't want that.
You don't want that.
So we're gonna start with that. Then what we're gonna do is, I made a couple other things too. So eventually we're gonna top it with a white truffle and Parmesan compound butter. Mm-hmm. So first though, what we got is we've got a cast iron skillet. So everybody should, if they can, get a cast iron skillet. They're affordable, but they'll last you a lifetime. So what we wanna do to get this thing started is we are going to turn it onto high and get it ripping hot. So when you're making this in the future, let's say you're entertaining somebody or having some fun, it's gonna create some heat and it's also gonna create some smoke. But that's okay. So we're gonna get it really hot, butter in the pan, and we're gonna sear each side for 2 minutes. Get a good crust on it, then throw it in the oven at 415 degrees for about 4.5 minutes, and that's gonna get us to the rare, medium rare stage. Let it rest, throw the butter on it, let it rest, then we're gonna have some steak, man.
Gotcha, that sounds good. See, what I usually did, because I didn't know any better, I would just cook it on the stove top, put it on for like 6 minutes, flip it 6 minutes, take it out, usually pretty good.
Yeah, oh for sure. You'll get a quality steak that way.
Gotcha.
But if you're going to like a steakhouse or a restaurant, what they do is they'll use wood fire ovens to kind of create the same thing here. Mm-hmm. But depending on the quality of the meat, what you're describing is the way I would, just the other day we made what we call Cadillac fried rice. So we took a New York strip and salted it, let it rest for an hour, but then out on the counter, and then put it into just a regular frying pan for 4 or 5 minutes each side, took it out, and then kept the fat in there, and then we cooked all the veggies and the fried rice and everything in there, and then put the meat back in it.
Gotcha.
So the resting part, you're still gonna get a quality steak, but this is the way you should do it in the future. This is the proper way.
To impress your friends.
That's right.
So let me tell you this as an African, right?
Okay.
This is a taboo For an African to just eat steak alone, you usually pair it with something else. And I know the temperature is usually different. If you go to any African, Nigerian, they call it suya, or Congo nyama, or Kenya nyama choma.
Yeah.
It's usually done to well done or really well done. So coming here,
Yeah.
see like medium rare, and having to order like well done, and people are making fun of me. I'm like, listen, I'm an African. I do it the way I do it.
You know what? You know what though? A lot of that comes. There's two reasons. One of them is a fake reason that people talk about. So I recently was at this great local restaurant, Victoria restaurant, and this family opened it, and they have a strip steak there that's incredible. So they break this out, and I'm having it. It's great. My wife and I were at dinner, and the chef comes in and goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, it's undercooked." I'm like, "No, dude. This is medium rare. This is how it should be." He's like, "No, coming from where he came from in the Caribbean, he's like, we always want it well done." So the story, the wrong story is people say, well, the reason why people in different parts of the world, particularly like Africa and the Middle East and Eastern Europe, they're like, oh, it's because the quality of the beef is lower there, so they want to cook it well done to change the taste. That's not true. Yeah, it's definitely not true. Especially like if you look at places that have a lot of grasslands, like Africa, the Caribbean, dude, the beef there is gonna be immaculate.
I'll tell you that. I have this friend. His name is Frankie. His grandfather lives in Kenya full time. He travels a lot.
Yeah.
He's had Wagyu beef, you name it. He's had it. He told me best steak he's ever had in his life was in Zambia, Africa.
I wouldn't doubt that. I've had Wagyu from Japan and America, and I've had beef from Africa that was outstanding. The reason why I believe, and a lot of people think about why like different parts of the world like it well done versus other areas, is some of the cooking styles in the world stay traditional to how it was for a long time. And that's a cool thing, right? Like Italy is an example of that. Like they've been making stuff the same way. Some parts of China the same way. The United States is a super young country. And one of the great things about it is this cultural melting pot, and that is seen the most in food. Like you'll go to restaurants that are Spanish restaurants and they're making variations of egg foo young, and you're going somewhere else and they're making fried chicken and they're doing different things like that. So when it came over here, there tends to be more styles and new things trying and coming across that way. So some of the Western European styles of like steak being rare and fancier, they all blend up, so it kind of seems to be more the way in North America that people tend to, I mean, I prefer it rare. Like well done, when people order a well done burger, I'm like, oh man, I hate that, I gotta ask you to leave. No, I'm just kidding. But like that's part of the history of that. And I think also too, is learning about that too, because there's, depending on the cut of meat, the level of doneness will change the flavor. So a ribeye, as an example, is, or New York strip too, these are fattier cuts of meat, right? So if you do it well done, the fat ends up getting grizzled a little bit, so it doesn't really taste the same way and it gets chewier. But I mean, there's a lot of great cuts of meat that are great well done too.
What would be a great cut of meat to use for a well done steak?
So
Somebody out there that likes it well done.
yeah, so what I would prefer would be a strip steak or a hanger steak. They're gonna be thinner, and if you've pounded them out, you've let them rest, the well done flavor is gonna be awesome, and it's still gonna work. And again, this steak would still be a good steak well done. Yeah. But most of the time, you're not gonna order it. And when you go to when they go to restaurants, what they typically will do, like a quality steakhouse, is they're gonna advise you against the well done. And partly the reason why they wanna do that is they're about to charge you an arm and a leg for that steak. So they want to say, oh, we're doing some fancier things to it. But those who the steak, that type of stuff I would do too. But a lot of the meat that gets tougher, if you're just grilling it or cooking like we are, becomes a problem when you have like, you'll have things like, yeah, let's get the fan on there. Okay. That is good and hot. All right, I'm gonna throw this on. So let that go 2 minutes aside. So a lot of the meat though too, like in a lot of cultures, including general American culture, right? When they have meat that tends to be tougher, what people tend to do with it is they're gonna stew it. So people put it in crock pots, like a crock pot, like a chuck roast, right? Like Italian beef, like you see in the show The Bear.
Yep. I haven't watched an episode of that yet.
It's a great show. It's totally a great show. So what they end up doing is they take some tougher meat and you stew it so it braises, so it cooks in its own juices, and over time it breaks down, like the thickness of the muscle fiber break down. So here, historically, if people are cooking crock pots and making pot roasts, that's because they couldn't afford a bigger, more expensive cut of meat like a ribeye, so they'd buy the cheaper chuck roast and then let it cook for hours because they could save money and still get great flavor out of it. But in reality, it really comes down to this, man. I don't kink shame and I don't food shame people. If you like your steak well done,
whatever it is.
You know what? If it makes you happy, it makes you happy.
It's funny you say that because a lot of cuisines come from moms just trying to make it happen for
Yep.
their kids, right?
Yep.
Trying to make sure the food is going on the table and it comes into culture.
Yes.
We start cooking like that for generations after generations. Like my mom made it this way, so I'm gonna make it this way.
Yes.
You know?
And you learn from your parents. Like my mom taught me how to cook, and my mom, when we were growing up, my parents are both working all the time. They were going to school full time, so yeah, I figured that was gonna happen. Okay. Okay. So what we will get, if you want, here's what we'll do. You hold this, and then we are gonna take so what compound butter is, oh, let me get my butter knife. Sorry, dude. Okay. So compound butter is you take room temperature good butter. We use the French butter, so it's like 85% fat. They also call it European butter, but it's really the French because they're the people that get the piggiest on things. So what you do is you mix in, we put in truffle oil and some actual white truffles, some really good Parmesan cheese we got, and then rolled it and then put it into the fridge overnight so it solidifies. Then it's pretty high also in salt. We put a lot of salt in it, but there's actual piece of truffle. So now while it's resting, the butter is gonna melt onto the steak. We're gonna have some flavor. So throw that, so we're gonna tent that. Yep. So another way good way to rest a steak to keep the moisture in is just take a small piece of tin foil and rest it over the top and tight around the sides. Let it sit for 5 minutes. Then we'll hit it with some parsley. It's still cooking right now, yep. So it's keeping the juices are circulating through it. And then when it comes out, it should be medium rare to maybe medium a little bit, left a little bit longer because we're learning that our man rolling with a little
I don't do
more done.
I don't do well done. I usually do medium well.
Okay. An aristocrat here now. He's doing medium well.
Hey, I'm learning.
So where are the places you like to go out and eat when you're around here?
I don't usually go out to be honest with you. Usually
Okay.
Cooking.
Yep.
But I like a good steak. And, probably the last place I went to was actually Delmonico.
Yeah, Delmonico, they do it right, man.
Yeah, they do.
That Delmonico steak they drop out is legit. I mean, it's huge, and I mean,
It's huge, fatty.
yeah, it's delicious. But also, I mean, you're a grown boy, so you're probably eating the whole thing. But some people put down half of it and take their half home.
If it doesn't start with a 24 ounce, I'm not ordering it. I can eat the whole thing and still add.
Okay, so here's how we're gonna serve this. We're gonna take some fresh parsley. We're gonna just put a little bit of that over the top, right? And then, well, brought some silverware for you, some silverware for me. So we take some of the compound butter. Now we're seeing it melt and get all over this steak flavor. So I'm just gonna cut off a piece and see how we came out. Okay, medium rare.
Bite test.
Let's see what you think.
What should I cut? What was it? It's really juicy. put it like this. There's a lot of places I would go and get steak, and I would still have to add A1 sauce to it. I wouldn't add anything to this.
All right, then we're doing the right thing, baby. Appreciate that.
I would eat this. Oh man, that's
Awesome.
good.
Awesome.
Really good. I'm going for another bite.
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. I feel bad for Stefan sitting behind the camera and
Yeah.
watching this.
Hopefully there's some left for him.
Hopefully.
A great skill for everybody to have in their kitchen is being able to make a high quality steak. A couple things, at least the way I was taught, you gotta be able to have a really good starch you can make well, like macaroni and cheese, and then also know your way on how to fry stuff, right? Like fried chicken. To me, if someone, they always ask me like, oh, well, I think I can cook, I'm a good cook, or like, how do I know I'm a good cook? If you can make a good fried chicken and repeat it multiple times and it still tastes good more than once, then you're doing it right. Because the reason why frying, this stuff, you can just follow the steps, right, on the steak. If the steak's thick enough, you can do what you gotta do. For something like fried chicken, the hardest thing to do is to manage the oil temperature. So people make a batch and they're like, yo, this chicken's awesome. People are loving it, right? They're cheersing the drumsticks, but the oil's still heating up. They drop the next batch in and now everything's overcooked, and that's a problem. But this is one of the quality things I think people should know how to do.
This is really good. So where did you get the steak? And I think
Yeah.
if you want to highlight one of the best steak places to get steak, what would you say that
So
is?
where I got this steak from is from Liehs Steigerwald, which is on the north side of Syracuse. These dudes have been cutting meat and being butchers since the 1930s. And they get all of their meat, they source most of it locally, but you go in there, you get a cut of ribeye, it's gonna be quality grade stuff, and the people there are awesome. So they have smoked meats, they've got everything, so we love that place. And there's also other places too, depending on what type of meat you're looking for. So a steak, I'm gonna do that. A place I spend a lot of time at for fresh seafood is the Asian market on Erie Boulevard. That place is legit. It's basically a wet market. If you go in there, they've got live eels and everything that are all set up. And actually, one of the craziest things when you walk in there, the first time I was in there, I saw like what was an open cooler, and there was like a part of a fence on the top of the cooler with a hammer on it. And I'm like, what? And I look in there, and there's like 40 frogs live, like riveting and looking up at me. And I'm like, oh man. So I asked the guy, I'm like, what's up? He goes, you want some frog legs? And I'm like,
Oh wow.
yeah, dude.
Oh wow.
Cut to order. And I'm like, why is the lid on here? And because at one point they put it out without the lid, and the frogs were jumping out, hopping around the store. You know what I mean?
But there's a movie like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some great places though, and as Syracuse is growing in terms of the melting pot area, right? You've got some cool new Ethiopian restaurants. A place that I always recommend to anybody is New Century, which is a Vietnamese restaurant. Oh, dude, the pho there it's unreal. But you mentioned going to Salt City Market. So Salt City Market, built to create generational wealth in the area. It's really, as you're in the tech garden, it's an incubator for restaurants.
Yes.
So all the people in there are hustling and they're making great food. And eventually, like when someone leaves, we're like, oh man, they're going to open a full scale place. So it's awesome. That place also, you get super quality food.
Yes, you do. We're in the conversations to work with them to see how we can onboard their restaurants, to introduce them more to students market like Des Moines or even SU. So
For sure.
We'll see how that goes, but we would love to help them bring them to more student market.
They need the help, but I think even more so, the students need to be exposed to that.
Yes.
So there used to be like in different areas like Erie Boulevard, you said this place Tokyo Soul that was like a hibachi restaurant. Now you have like Fruto and those places, which are cool. But the students in Syracuse and Des Moines will know one place, and then that's the only place they go to. And the exposure, right? You're going to college and meet new people. The cultural exposure, food to me is the best way to introduce different cultures. Yeah, new city for sure.
So it's at Les Moines. When I went to Les Moines, it's like anything outside from that bubble of Les Moines, I don't really know.
Yep.
For 4 years I was in Les Moines, I didn't really know Syracuse until I actually moved out here.
Yep.
I would order from the same place, Dosa Grill,
Yeah.
Chinese places.
Yep.
But if I had Salt City Market, the different cuisines they have there from Africa, Asia, Cake, I could order them much more. You know?
Yep. The cultural diversity of food is so important to me because that's how you learn about different stuff and it's just fun. But you mentioned Dosa Grill. Dosa Grill is legit, right? Great Indian restaurant. And people get Thai food at like Erewhon, or you want to spend a lot of money, you go to Lemongrass, you get a really high level meal there. But
I don't think I have lemongrass money. Not yet.
you're going to have lemongrass. Keep grinding, you're going to have lemongrass money. But the thing is these different places. So they're like, oh, I like Indian food. Well, you like one Indian restaurant, so you got to try different places. People don't realize how many different foods they actually already like. Jamaican food is something that people are like, oh, I didn't know I like Jamaican food. You've had jerk chicken for years, dude. You definitely like it. So it's a funny way that people can use food as a way to expand their cultural horizon. You know, it's pretty cool.
So this segment of our show is called "The Voice from the Inner Circle."
Okay.
Right. So we reached out to your friends and family, and you
Boy.
talked about being a great person, or you don't think you're a good person. I just have a few messages from some of your people.
Okay.
I found out more information from them than you would ever tell me earlier on, so I had to go that route. So this is from Stephanie, and I find it very remarkable what you do with the notes, handwritten notes that you send out to everyone, whether it's your wife or your friends, your frat buddies from college, just
Yep.
checking in on them. That's really something special. And this is what few quotes that she said that really got me. I'm going to read it to the camera so the audience can really hone in to what it really is to experience Matt Reed. Um, Matt is without a question one of the most thoughtful people I've ever encountered. Every single day, he gives me a card with motivation quotes and supportive, loving messages. I seriously, I mean, I get 365 days a year of cards. It's remarkable. And where's my card?
Well, let's see how the rest of this interview goes before we start seeing where the cards come out.
What really spoke to me is the story that she told me about when our father got was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and how you were there for her and her family, taking him to baseball games, and even when the time came when he unfortunately passed away, dealing with all that. And this is what she has to say. He and my dad would watch baseball and go golfing or just sit together. Matt helped me feed my dad or help him with other basic functions when he was no longer able to do so for himself, and his friendship and care meant so much to my dad and family. I would not have made it through my dad's illness and death without the unyielding love, time, and support Matt gives me and my family. Talk about being a good person, man. You know, just
Well, I don't want to start crying. I think though that stuff is a younger version of me couldn't have done that. You know, would have been like, oh, this is way too much trouble or hassle. So I think the more you experience things, the better you get at it. And the card thing, that's also doghouse insurance. You know what I mean? Like, make sure, hey, keep the cards coming. Then in case like I'm out a little too late one night or something, or I'm working too late with students. You know what I mean? That tends to be, but that makes me feel really special to hear that.
our special person.
Thank you so much, man.
Got one from Alex.
Okay.
You know?
He's about to fire me.
Matt and I are co-owners of Spatchcock Funk. We embarked in this venture based on a simple conversation on how nothing beats being together with friends and enjoying good food. Matt's culinary skills and my filming expertise led us to create a successful business and a televised show. Matt's passion has enabled us to excel in both running our businesses and making positive impact on the community. So that's from the business side of Spatchcock. But from more of the community side, that's what he had to say. Separate from his professorship at Lemoyne, Matt is the owner of two successful businesses, Royal Punk Android and Spatchcock. These businesses thrive not only because he excels at what he does and is passionate about his work, but also because he is the person everyone wants around and truly values his opinion. Matt's ability to make a difference in all his endeavors stems from his passion, which resonates in his work and ultimately reaches his audience. And that couldn't even be more true. You're the first person I call when I need pick me up. I'm having a block. right? I need to speak to somebody. Once I speak to you, I have a clear vision of what I need to do, or even just the first stepping stones. And it just goes to show how much you mean to a lot of people. And when you were one of the first professors that I met, and our energy just clicked, and I was like, man, I like this person.
Well, I felt the same way about you, and that makes me feel special to hear that from people that I spend a lot of time with. And you try to, like we were saying earlier, invest in those relationships, right? Like, how do you treat people? That really is how we define ourselves, you know. So I think about some people like for me, and I'm not exaggerating about this. I don't think I figured a lot of this stuff out about me until I was like in my 30s. But you're already doing this now at your age, and I sometimes will get mad at myself and be like, why didn't I learn that earlier? What could I have done more successfully longer than? But I didn't, you know what I mean? So when I see people like you that are able to do that way earlier than I was able to figure it out, I'm not jealous. I'm like just so happy and impressed. And like people like Stephanie and Alex, those people, like, to me, I think oftentimes, as you've probably found in your life when you're working with Stefan, who's behind the camera here, or people that you're close with from Clutch Delivery, or people that you've bonded with before, to me, good people beget good people. And someone might not be a good person at this point in their life, but they can get there if they're around other good people that kind of you learn from. You know what I mean? So I think that's an important aspect in terms of personal growth, but in the growth of communities, right? Because no community on earth is perfect to begin with, but none of them have been perfect all along. In fact, a lot of healthy communities had to go through some type of trauma or stress to bring people together, right? When everything's going perfectly awesome, it's like the Harry Potter movies, man. Like, I don't know if you're a big Harry Potter fan. Okay, so Harry Potter is super interesting, and I'm like, man, I just want to watch an entire school year. But no, you don't. You're gonna get bored after like 20 minutes of that, right? You need some type of action to create a situation, conflict that brings people together. So with Stephanie and everything, when you're married to someone and you're really close friends with people and you're kind of in the mix with them, you see how people perform when stuff isn't going well. And working with people like you, as you're building this business with a really cool vision and you're treating other people so well, then you see something happen, like losing a vendor or maybe not getting funding for something, right? That's where you find out really what people are made of. Like you said earlier, you said it really well. So that was probably too much for me to handle right there, but I'm trying to hold myself together. But I appreciate that.
I didn't want to get you emotional on camera, but I just wanted to communicate very loud and clearly that you have people around you. That's your community. Sometimes we don't get a chance to tell the people that we love what they really mean to us because you see them every day, right? This was an opportunity to express that to you. And everybody out there that's working with you, I go around Syracuse and I hear Matt Reed's name and I get so happy.
Or they're probably like, oh, you know, Matt Reed, he owes me $20.
Probably. And I'll probably get chased out the restaurant. Oh man,
I appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure getting to know you and this audience here. Please go follow this guy, follow his businesses, and you will not be disappointed. With that being said, that's the end of the first part of our show. We'll move this forward with the second part. We'll be going to Oh My Darling. So, like I said in the beginning of the show, the second part of this show is promoting local businesses, and Matt's choice is Oh My Darling. Going there, ordering there, getting some food, and talking to the people who work there to truly highlight what's special about Syracuse.
Thank you for having me, man. This is awesome. Appreciate it. Well, I'm trying to get my arms as big as yours are. Like I was hoping that we'd film like in the wintertime because then you'd have to have a long sleeve shirt, so I could have the bigger arms in the room.